All right, I need, you're my audience member. I need an audience. Hello, this is Alicia. This is my wife. This is the only audience member that I could get a hold of because the people that would typically be here watching the presentation as well, they've had to go handle family issues out of state, and nobody else is available, so I'll have to take the 10-point deduction.
I am also cameraman.
Yes. I'm Hindu. I've been Hindu for about 15 years. I was born Christian. On my father's side, they were Catholic. My mother's side, they were Baptist. And as I grew up, I explored a variety of religions. I not only explored Christianity, but also Islam, Judaism, Taoism, Confucianism, atheism. But over time, I decided that Hinduism is what agreed with my core philosophies the best. Now, one of the core philosophies of Hinduism, one of the most major ones, is the concept of non-injury. And it's similar to the Christian commandment of thou shalt not kill, but it goes beyond that. One is not allowed to physically harm another, emotionally harm another, verbally harm another, or even think of harming another. It's one of the reasons that vegetarianism is so popular in Hinduism, because one cannot contribute to the murder of animals, not even by providing a need for that meat. So why is it that a book that seems to condone violence is what is most commonly associated with Hinduism? And why would you care? Well, I believe that you may have in the past, or may in the future, come into contact with information, and that may help shape your view of the religion. And if you take a violent document, and that is what you associate with Hinduism, that can negatively impact your view of the religion. The Bhagavad Gita is an important and beautiful excerpt from the epic, the Mahabharata. And its popularity was useful in introducing the idea of Hinduism in the West. However, it is an artistic representation of historic and the synopsis of spiritual information, the core teachings of Hinduism. The Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters. It's 18 chapters of the Mahabharata, synopsis of history and spiritual lessons, but it is not intended as a holy book. As one main point, our second main point is that the Bhagavad Gita seems to condone violence, which doesn't align with Hindu values, or the beliefs of Hinduism, and the teachings of actual holy books, such as the Vedas. The Bhagavad Gita is a record of history. It's an expression in context. It's a historical record that is expressed in the context of teachings of the time, the teachings of the Vedas and Agamas. The 18 chapters dedicated to the Bhagavad Gita tells of the legend of the conflict of two ancient dynasties, Arjuna and members of his extended family that actually wanted to usurp his authority and take over the kingdom. The tale is frequently attributed to a sage known as Vyasa. He was also known as Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa. And because it's from so long ago, he is and potentially attributed not only with the Mahabharata, but some of the actual revealed scripture of the time, the Agamas and such. Shivaya Subramanya Swami said, "The Mahabharata, the world's longest epic poem, is the legend of two ancient dynasties, whose great battle of Kurukshetra is the scene of the Bhagavad Gita, an eloquent spiritual dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. In the specific interaction, and there is a lot of spiritual interaction in 18 chapters, between Arjuna and Krishna is how the spiritual lessons of the Vedas are conveyed. To quote the Bhagavad Gita, "Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached." This is one of the prevailing themes of the teachings of Hinduism and in the Vedas. Detachment is necessary for meaningful satisfaction in life. And being attached to a certain end can either create joy or sorrow, but it causes you to deviate from the natural state of being, from peace. Another quote, "Man has an inherent faith in one or another of the qualities, purity, passion, and ignorance." This was a brief mention of similar concepts that are taught by the Ayurveda, which is the medical spiritual book of Hinduism. And it teaches, similar to how there are three main forces, universal forces, creation, preservation, and destruction, there are also human qualities. There's sattva, there is raja, and there is tamas. These are called gunas. And they associate with purity, passion, and ignorance or sloth. Third quote, "O immutable one, my delusion has fled. By thy grace, O changeless one, the light has dawned. My doubts are gone, and I stand before thee ready to do thy will." In this part of the story, Arjuna has seen Krishna in his godly form, and he experiences moksha, which Hinduism teaches is the ultimate goal of spiritual life. You want to achieve freedom, liberation from rebirth. Now, taking this background into consideration, we can move to the book's seeming condonement of violence, which it largely seems to condone. It's not aligned with Hinduism's core values of nonviolence. Because the story deals with Arjuna's internal conflict about the coming external conflict with his family, the story is rife with examples of violence. To quote the Bhagavad Gita again, "Meditate always on me and fight. If thy mind and thy reason be fixed on me, to me thou shalt surely come." What Krishna is doing is explaining to Arjuna, don't think, don't feel the weight of the thousands of family and friends that you are going to have to kill, that are going to die, that may be killed because of your violent interaction in defending your kingdom. It doesn't matter that they are the ones rising up against you and you're going to have to fight them. Don't think about that. Just think about me. It'll be okay. To quote again, "Then gird up thy loins and conquer, Subdue thy foes and enjoy the kingdom in prosperity. I have already doomed them. Be thou my instrument, Arjuna. Drona and Bhishma and Jayadratha and Karna and other brave warriors. I have condemned them all. Destroy them. Fight and fear not, thy foes shall be crushed. I've got more. If thou thinkest of avoiding this fight, thy will shall not be fulfilled, for nature herself will compel thee. Now, I picked these three quotes because it portrays how God is bringing Arjuna into this idea of being okay with fighting, with violence. And he's saying, don't think about it. Don't think about it. Just do it. And also, it'll be bad if you don't do it. But Hinduism is at its core a nonviolent religion. Now, it does have some exceptions. If you have to defend yourself, if you have to defend your family, if not being violent would bring greater harm, then violence is acceptable. But non-injury, ahimsa, is the core of the religion. And violence shouldn't be at the forefront of the teachings. It shouldn't be accepted as the holy book. The exceptions should not be the main idea. To quote Shivaya Subramania Swami, who was a sage, it is indeed unfortunate that this particular composition has been championed to represent Hinduism rather than the four Vedas. It is smriti, specifically itihasa, meaning a man-made history, a poem excerpted from the Mahabharata. To break up the quotes, there is a wide variety that falls under the umbrella term of Hinduism. It's not getting too much in depth. Sage was asked why there were 3.3 million gods. And he answered, there aren't. There's more. There's a God for every single person on the planet because your experience with the divine is going to be completely unique to you. Because there's such a variety of thought in Hinduism, there are multiple sects. The four major sects are Vaishnavism, Smartism, Shivism, and Shaktism. Vaishnavism and Smartism, they accept the Bhagavad Gita as a holy book. Shaivism and Shaktism do not, and nor does Buddhism, which could also be considered a distant cousin of Hinduism. The final quote is again from Shivaya Subramania Swami. In this century, the Smartas, along with many Vaishnavas, have taken the Bhagavad Gita as their prime scripture, a text which is not a revealed scripture at all. Whereas the Vedas, the four divinely revealed and most revered scriptures of all Hindus, promoted ahimsa, nonviolence, the Gita condoned war, and has thus been critically called Kolai Nul, the Book of Carnage. This summarizes the source, intent, misuse, and the use of the Bhagavad Gita. The Vedas and Agamas form the scripture that is the core principles, that forms the core principles of Hinduism. The Bhagavad Gita is an artistic abridgment, summary of the concepts with its historical context. And it's been taken and represented as the scripture itself. Now, my main points with this is that the Bhagavad Gita offers very little unique information. Very little unique philosophy. No, it does not stand alone. It takes any teachings that can be gleaned from it from something else and it puts it in context of a story. It'd be like using the cliff notes of the Bible and accepting that as divine literature. And so it's hard to argue its overall significance. To close, the Gita had a minor contributing effect on history, but it was not historically necessary. And if I were going to recommend books that better defined Hinduism, I would choose to read the Vedas, the Agamas, or at the very least, books by Shivaya Subramania Swami, who did a very good job of summarizing the teachings by reading Merging with Shiva, Living with Shiva, and Dancing with Shiva. Thank you.